Hey everybody, it's Teepa, and I have a friend here today, a guest. This is Joyce. And Joyce, I would like you to tell us a little bit about how you got to be interested in what I do based on what happened to you a lot of years ago. So, what actually happened to you a lot of years ago?
1985, I was assaulted by a prisoner while working as a corrections officer.
You got attacked by a prisoner who was in high distress and they did something to you. What exactly did they do to you?
She knocked on the door. The bathrooms were public bathrooms. They all shared one. And it was after lockdown. She knocked on her door to be let out to go to the bathroom, which was a normal occurrence. I opened her door and she grabbed a hold of me by my hair, pulled me into her cell, and with my hair, and she's punching and kicking at the same time, beat my head between her locker and the cement brick wall.
Okay, so you were attacked and she had your hair and she was slinging your head back and forth and banging it places.
Yes.
But she was also beating up on your body a little bit.
Yes, I've got a back injury and a head injury as a result.
Okay, so after that incident, so that happened, boom. And then what happened immediately after that?
They sent me to the industrial clinic where they did an x-ray and sent me on my way.
Okay, so they did an x-ray. Now, in my world, that is, they checked to see if your skull had been fractured.
Okay.
That's what they were looking for. They were looking possibly also to see if your neck had been fractured. Mm-hmm. They may have even put you in a neck brace in that moment when they took you over there.
No, they didn't.
Oh, all right. Well, these days they would definitely stabilize your neck because when you had that kind of injury, we'd be concerned about your vertebrae in your neck as well. However, they took you over, and then when they didn't find a fracture, did they do a cognitive screening at that point?
No. As a matter of fact, I didn't have a cognitive screening for at least 12 years.
Okay. So I'm taking a deep breath and going, So the next day, I'm going to say you went home from work. Did you leave early or did you finish your shift?
Oh, no. By the time I got back from the industrial clinic, it was about
that was it. Yeah. Okay. So you went home. What happened that night? I'm curious how that night went for you.
Well, I was working afternoon shift, and by 11 o'clock at night, I'm exhausted. I had 2 small children. So as usual, I just went home and went to bed.
Okay. You went to bed. You didn't really think too much about it, except I'm sure your neck and your hair, at least where your hair was, that was killing you a little bit.
My head hurt where my hair was pulled, yeah. And understand this attack went on for 45 minutes.
Oh, my. Oh, dear. So it took a long time for anybody else to come and help.
Yes.
Wow.
It looked like a garage door opener that I kept in my pocket, but they malfunctioned so often that the control center would call on the phone to make sure you were all right before they sent somebody out.
Oh,
and when I didn't answer the phone, they just thought that I was busy, and because it was lockdown, and I wasn't answering the phone. So finally, they called the other side of the unit and had them come over and look. But because my side of the unit was locked down, none of the prisoners could help me. And in a women's facility, that would happen.
Yeah, other women would have come to your aid because it's like she was out of control and they got it, that there was something really wrong with her and she needed help, but not beating you up. It wasn't going to be helpful.
Right.
So that night you slept. Had you, so, but nothing else. Nobody evaluated anything else. They just basically were checking to see whether you had a skull fracture, whether you might have hurt your neck, and that was it.
Right. And my supervisor asked me how I was feeling when I got back to the unit. And I said, I'm fine. I'll see you tomorrow. So even I thought I'd be back.
Yeah. Now you used my favorite word in describing how are things going. Fine. And
Yes.
instead of going, so how are you doing, Joyce, after all that? Are you here, or here after that event?
Probably midway.
Probably midway. Now, see, that would have been a much better question to ask, because, you know, that recognizing something's not right, it's not 100%. But when you say fine, that's a cover. That's your brain covering up. That's what human brains do when they're vulnerable. When they feel vulnerable, is they cover so that you won't be vulnerable, because I mean, that was your job. You didn't want to lose your job. That was your income. You didn't want to lose your income. And you really did not notice anything different, really, other than, boy, that was horrible. I mean, I don't want to do that again. I mean, that was a lot of trauma. But nobody even mentioned it was trauma.
No.
Did you have to fill out the incident report?
My coworkers did. And several, including my boss, said, well, why didn't you take her out? And that was their word of assaulting her back and protect yourself. And I said, because I need my job. And I knew that would be a firing situation.
Oh, wow. So, okay. So that happened. Okay. So the next day, what happened?
I woke up with what I call a migraine. It goes along with the traumatic brain injury, and those continue up to 3 times a week, to the point where they put me in bed.
Wow. And that's, now that was 1985, 95, 2005, 2015. We are getting on close to 40 years later, and you're still having acute symptoms, because migraines are fairly acute symptoms of a chronic change condition in your brain that triggered from the start from that incident.
Yes.
Okay. So evidently at the time, there was no identification of a potential head injury, nor was there an evaluation for any cognitive shift or physical change. So when you started getting migraines, was there concern that perhaps there could have been damage done that they didn't notice, or what happened with those migraines you started to have?
I went off on workers' compensation.
Okay, they were really severe migraines. They were debilitating migraines.
Right. And I started to have neck and back problems at the same time.
Okay, so, but mostly we were talking about neck, back, migraines, like circulation problems in the brain, but still no awareness that we should be curious about this incident of head banging back and forth, contra coup head banging. Still not noticing that. Okay, so when did this come to a sort of quote unquote a head? When did it become apparent something had happened to your head? And I'm not talking just the skull portion. I'm talking about what's inside that basket in there. This is just the basket. That's the goodies. When did that happen?
The next day, I woke up and realized that I couldn't remember prisoners' names that had been involved in the assault the night before. And that was a dramatic change from what I was the day before.
Did anybody else pick up on that besides you?
I had a roommate that I discussed it with, but no. I struggled with words. I struggle with names, and have since day one.
So the symptoms started right after the event, the very next day. By the next day, you were having some significant word finding problems. You were having name finding problems, and actually word finding problems. You were having pain from a migraine, so fairly acute, and you were having some trauma to your body that was happening. At least those things were going on, and you even knew those things were happening.
Yes.
So, but the disability was more related to what?
Well, to the trauma period.
To the trauma of the attack.
To the pain.
And the pain. Okay, so, but still no recognition by the system that you had a status post-traumatic brain injury.
That's correct.
Okay.
And they really never did.
Oh, so that system never recognized what had gone on, and there were no more X-rays or CAT scans or functional MRIs to look at what was happening in your brain.
At that point, it became me versus them.
Oh,
it wasn't a let's find out from the state. It was we don't want to pay you from the state.
yeah.
So it became an adversarial problem.
Yeah. Did you have a lawyer that you were working with?
I had 3 lawyers that I was working with.
It was a disability lawyer, I'm assuming, or a workman's comp.
Yes.
Yeah. Were they knowledgeable about status post head injury, or were they more work related expertise?
I think they were more concerned about income. So they primarily focused on the long-term disability and
so they focused on the migraines, the pain, that stuff, the body stuff, and the migraine thing, rather than, by the way, I'm having trouble with words and names and such. And I really,
oh no, they didn't even get into that.
Okay. So this is one of the, I'm bringing this up because in this conversation, we have legal support that's not knowledgeable enough to say, you know what, I want us to get a functional MRI because I want us to look for some focal changes that might be related to this, because this is a big deal. You can't have that kind of head trauma potentially and not have injury that's significant. But we didn't have legal support that was doing that. And so they were functioning on, well, you got pain, you got neck pain, da, 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 da. But they were not really helping you appreciate or helping the system appreciate, no, this was a traumatic brain injury. All right. So how long did it take until something happened that somebody said, well, you have had a head injury?
It took 6 neurologists and a physical medicine doctor later to have one that actually saw that there was damage.
How long in time since the incident did that occur?
At least 12 years.
Okay.
I tried to go back to work and was ultimately fired because of the problems I was having with the brain injury. But even I hadn't identified those problems other than I knew I had deficiencies there.
Wow.
For example, organization.
So you were trying to get back into work. You were trying to do what you needed to do to help your family, to live a life, to do it. And you had workman's comp. You had gotten some disability stuff from the damage that was done, but they missed a whole big chunk of stuff. And so you got back into work where it was proved that you were incompetent at things these days due to, and this sort of and still there was due to the head injury I had back then, it was still she's just not good at this stuff. I just don't think she's trying, or I don't think she's, she should know how to do this. Why is she not doing this? This is her fault. And so lots of blaming going on, I'm thinking, more than likely.
Well, I ran into the boss that wasn't willing to work with me. By that time, I knew that it was a result of the assault.
Mm-hmm.
To this day, I don't know how far it goes and what it's causing. But at that point, I knew that if it was out of sight, out of mind, I didn't do it. So I had to sit out on my desk, which left the desk a mess, and I got written up for it.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things.
So you were trying to compensate for the changes that you were experiencing, and there was no disability like we would say, we need to compensate for this, and she needs working disability support so she can do this. Right. And that was not part of the program at all, because she just needs to be able to do this, and I don't want to see the mess on the desk, and she needs to do X, she shouldn't be doing Y. So no flexibility whatsoever.
Exactly.
Okay. So then that was another trauma then. I mean, then you struggled with a trauma of feeling less, of feeling like a human being that was incompetent and unable, and you got treated incredibly badly by this supervisor.
I had, by the time it was over, I had a 75-page document of a hostile work environment with this woman, and she eventually fired me. I lost my job as a result of it. So yes, that was another trauma that was probably worse than the original assault.
Yeah. I mean, because you do view you're a competent, skillful woman. I mean, and to be basically dismissed and basically treated as though you are not is pretty devastating. I mean, to you as a human being. And still not a true recognition by the system. Guys, this all started long ago. And if we had done anything in the interim to do compensatory strategies and to maybe do some repair work with somebody, we might, that somebody being Joyce, we might be in a different place than we are right now. But none of that happened.
Correct. And when I finally went off, it was back to the pain of the migraines as opposed to anything psychological that happened with that. So that wasn't ever acknowledged with workers' comp or the state.
Wow. Okay, so that went by, and then you tried other things. I mean, you didn't give up on trying to be productive and have value and do things that make a difference. Because that was, you said 12 years out from there, and now it's almost 40. So other things have gone on in your life. And again, still not a real recognition that this is a head injury, and status post head injury, you should be, number one, evaluated, number two, supported. And that neither of those things for the head injury, we should find out what parts of your brain were affected, what areas are not coming back, what areas have recovered, where you need actually some modifications in life so you can do better, and where we need to really go, ooh, you know what? This one is a off the table deal. This one shouldn't be going on anymore. I mean, but none of that happened.
Oh, heavens no.
Okay. So where are you now with everything, Joyce? I mean, because you're now for almost 40 years post. I mean, you're 30, 37, 38 years post. What would you say about this whole experience of living with a traumatic brain injury for this long without any real acknowledgement and recognition that that's what's going on for you?
You learn to compensate for the loss. If, for example, the out of sight, out of mind, you just don't put anything away. I got, for example, paying bills. I've got a system that I record all of the bills in a book, and that book stays out on the counter so that come payday, I make the payments. Otherwise, I forget. And if I don't get bills through the mail, if I don't get that physical paper,
have it. Yeah.
I don't see it to remember to pay it.
Yeah.
So there are some triggers that I have to put in place in order to get things done.
Wow. And that means whoever lives with you has to appreciate that that book is not on the counter to irritate them, and that you don't have things laying out just because you forgot to put them away. You actually need them where they are in order to get you to be okay with what to do and how to do it. Otherwise, mistakes happen, and there's not a thing you can do about it other than and then if somebody does put that book away or put it up or do something with it, I'm going to give you my best guess. Your primitive brain, your emotional brain, your amygdala goes, what did you do with my book? You are destroying my life. Because your amygdala is like pretty protective of that system because it's your survival system. I mean, it's truly about you surviving.
That's correct. I have lived alone since 2012. My partner moved to our home in Florida, and I'm with her 6 months out of the year until I got down this year and found that her sister had replaced me.
Oops.
So, yes.
In your house.
I'm alone, period now. She left.
Ouch.
But I have lived alone, but I tend to put things, I'll lay something down, for example, my phone. I'll lay it down and, Lord, where'd I put that? So I spend a lot of time hunting.
Looking. So you do a lot of hunting and gathering. And once you've hunted and gathered, you try to establish a consistent place.
Yes.
You try, but it's really hard sometimes because you're in the middle of doing something and it's like, if I leave here to go do that, then I'll lose what I'm doing here. So I'm going to lay this here, even though I know it doesn't belong here, so I can do this. And then I finish this, and I totally forgotten that I laid that thing there. And then I go to do the next thing, and the thing is missing that I need to do. And like, well, what happened to that? I thought I had it. I thought it was right. And what I have that you don't have is the ability to picture in my mind, where did I lay that accurately? And then go, oh yeah, I was paying the bills over there, so it's going to be laying over on the counter by the sink. Not an option.
Let me give you an example of a typical day. I start out, 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'll leave night dishes till morning because I feel better. I've got more energy.
Okay.
So I'm putting the dishes at the same time. I put a load of laundry in.
Uh-oh.
So I'm doing dishes, and all of a sudden the washer goes off. So I leave the dishes. I go to the laundry room to move the wash to the dryer. Then I need to use the bathroom. So I leave that and go to the bathroom, and that's where I lay my phone. And I go to the bedroom to get some clothes on, and someone knocks at the door.
Oh.
So I'm thinking, oh gosh, I'm not dressed yet. So I hurry up and finish getting dressed. I go to the door. It's the neighbor. I need a ride to work. And we're close enough that she's my right arm, I'm hers.
Yep.
So I drop everything and take her to work. Dishes never do get done.
Dishes are not done. You didn't finish the wash. The wash is in the dryer.
The dryer.
Start the dryer. The dryer's not started.
That's right.
And crap, where's my phone?
Yes, that's my day.
And all of this is the result of a head injury that was never even documented.
That's correct.
Wow. So you stumbled, and I don't mean it in a mean way. It's not like you tripped on us, but you stumbled across our work somehow.
I've got family. My grandfather had Parkinson's disease. My dad's sister had Alzheimer's. And my uncle, who now has Parkinson's as well, was taking such good care of my aunt that I was watching to see just exactly what he had done with your Alzheimer's group. And the more I watched, the more I thought, oh, gee, I do that. That's me. Oh, I didn't know that's why I did that. So I dropped you a note that said, thanks, because you're opening up a world that's been 40 years learning.
Yeah. And so for me, I started in developmental disabilities and head injury. That's my background. And then stroke.
Oh, neat.
And so that's where I came from to move into dementia. So I worked with people with all kinds of changes that were going on that were traumatic. And some of them were just like you. It was like 3 years post, and they were going, why am I having so much trouble? And it's like, because you had a head injury. They're going, oh, nobody said anything. I mean, I was in the car accident, and I had a little concussion, but it wasn't bad. And it was like, here's the bad news. It was bad. Now, your brain protected you and said, no, it's not that bad. So you could get through the trauma of of that incident, but it got damaged. And we're here to try to figure out how to help you live better now that we know, some of the stuff that happened, it's not going away. Some of the stuff that happened, you've recovered from. That's great because you're 3 years out, but there are still changes that aren't going to get better. And we need to learn with you how to help you live your life better with the awareness now that you don't look to your left anymore. I mean, you only can see what's here, and you never think to look further because your brain doesn't tell you there's more over there to look at. Your brain says that's the edge of the world. There's nothing over there. I mean, if that's what it is. Now, that's not true with you, but it was true at this woman. And it meant she kept running into things with a car again.
Oh, my.
Because no one had helped her figure out, you know what's happening? You're missing some of your visual field over here. And she's
Wow.
like, oh, surely somebody would have said something. It's like, no, they didn't, apparently. And we realized the accident that she was in, she was actually in the passenger side. And she whacked her head, because she was looking off to where the incident was about to take place. And her head slammed against the window 2 or 3 times because there was a multiple pileup. And all she did was get a concussion. But that's actually not true.
Right.
And so what we know these days is that head injuries are a lot more complicated than people were hoping they were. And you cannot really say, unless somebody goes into a coma, it's not a significant head injury. That's not true. And the idea that if we don't support people well and we don't evaluate after the head injury, we're doing a disservice to everyone involved. Because even as a friend or a partner, if I don't understand what's going on for you, I could get frustrated because you leave stuff out. Once I realize, oh, if she can't see it, she doesn't remember it, then it becomes, gotcha. Okay, now that's important. So if I want you to do something, I have to make sure that you're going to see it. Because if you don't, you're not going to do it, even though you say you will. And there's no point in me getting frustrated with you. You're not doing it because you want to ignore my request. Unless I leave something that gives you a visual cue and I know you're going to see it, you won't remember that I said it. That's real important for me to know as a care partner or a friend, because otherwise I get frustrated with you because and then I blame you thinking you're doing it deliberately. And so you have a most remarkable ability. I mean, and I don't know if anybody's told you that, a remarkable ability, Joyce, to figure out how to live with changes that nobody actually talked to you about. And yet when you do get new information about those changes, your brain goes, well, that's exciting. Now I have some understanding of why that's happening for me. And now, I get it. Oh, well, cool. That's good, because now that makes sense now. I just thought I was crazy, but now, no, that's why. Cool.
The actual diagnosis of a traumatic brain injury 12 years later was just like somebody turned on a light switch. I understood that there was a correlation, but I didn't understand that that's what it was doing. I stopped to get a prescription and couldn't remember who was with me. I couldn't remember what car I had. I knew all 3 cars, and I also knew the license numbers, but I couldn't remember which car I had nor where I parked it.
Ouch.
I get lost going to the grocery store. So it got to the point where I wouldn't go anywhere or do anything. And that's scary. Yes.
I mean, you collapse down and you hide because it's like, I'm going to make a mistake. I don't want to make a mistake. What if I make a mistake? I'm on my own. This is really terrifying. I mean, it gets so.
Well, what happens when I get lost and don't know where I'm at? That was before the days of cell phones.
Right. Before you could find your way back. I mean, if you couldn't remember how to get back, you just couldn't remember how to get back. You had to stop and ask somebody and hope that you'd find a nice person that wouldn't take advantage of you.
Right.
Yeah.
So it can be scary without those compensations or somebody to help. And unfortunately, I'm still looking for somebody to help. They aren't out there. And I'm talking Ann Arbor, Michigan. I'm talking Fort Myers area in Florida. I'm not finding anybody. And when I call places that supposedly have, the Head Injury Alliance, for example, they're not even answering telephones. So finding people even this day and age is difficult.
Yeah.
And
which is why we believe, whether it's head injury or whether it's dementia, when brains change, we need to support people who have changing brains. And even if it's a stable change, for some people, even if it's stable, if we were to view it as stable, for you, this is new data. And so by having the data that you need and the support that matters to you, your life can still change.
Right. Exactly.
And that's why we do what we do.
Right. And I do live alone, and I do fairly well. I I went into the last neurologist that's helped so much, and I said, listen, I'm a hoarder and I never used to be. I want a clean house, but if this isn't comfortable. And he says, no, you've got a traumatic brain injury. You're not a hoarder. But that still doesn't fix the issue.
It doesn't fix the issue. And so this idea of organizing things, you're going to need a map up on the wall of where everything gets put, because without the map, this is your map. Your brain will not let you do the organizing because you can't hold on to the map in your brain anymore.
Exactly.
You're going to need a person who knows how to build the map with you, and everything that goes in a box will need to be labeled on the outside of the box. And you might even want pictures of it with the labels on the outside of the box so your brain can, yes, that's the thing I'm looking for. And that's how you pack things up so that you don't have to randomly sort through things to find things. And this is where, if you don't understand this stuff from a helper's perspective, and you don't understand how brains work and what they do when they need something, we try to make people be different than they can be just by virtue of what they have that works and what doesn't. It's never going to work for somebody to come in and take over and try to do something for you.
No, not at all. And that's basically what happened in the house in Florida is, they moved everything out, and I had go to get a coffee cup and it's not there.
It's not where it's supposed to be. And you have a map in your head, and it's only one map. And if the map isn't the right map, you better have on that spot where I thought it was going to be where it is.
Right.
Or else just put it where it was.
Leave it alone. But take it a step further. The coffee cup is no longer in existence.
Yeah.
She destroyed it. So you can't live with people like that with what I've got.
If you don't have people who get the brain change and support that and recognize it for what it is, it's not you being ornery. It's basically your brain trying to survive.
Exactly.
So, well, Joyce, here's what I want to say. Thank you for being so courageous, because I think what you've done for many people is this is an opportunity for them to recognize someone in their life, or maybe themselves, had one of these things that happened. And you know what? They're 20 years post. And it's like, oh, that might be what's happening for me. Or somebody living with dementia goes, whether it's a head injury or whether it's dementia, I have that same problem. And you know what?
And that was kind of what I was thinking, is if maybe we could jumble it all up, at least at the early stages, and everybody can
live together, but not live together.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, we're under an umbrella, and it's a change. And let's just acknowledge, you know what? We can be here for each other if we're flexible. If we are not willing to, why does it have to be this label or that label? Let's look at what's working and what's not, and let's figure out what strategies might be helpful. And let's learn from each other.
And your shows of Alzheimer's have helped me tremendously. So thank you so much.
You are so welcome. Thanks for being there and learning and taking this in, because it all started with being curious about why your uncle did such a great job. And it turns out that it was more than that for you.
It really was.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Joyce. And for everyone out there, if you're curious about head injuries and dementia and head injuries and support and dementia and support, check out other opportunities. But if you want, feel free to leave comments, have questions. I'm sure Joyce will be happy to try to respond in any way she can, because that's just who she is. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Hi, I'm Teepa Snow, and you just found our YouTube channel and watched one of our videos. I'm the owner and founder of Positive Approach to Care. Thanks for watching. And if you liked, if you have a comment about, or you would, please share it with people you know. Oh, and if you haven't yet done it, consider subscribing. We'll let you know when the next new video comes out. And you might want to visit our website, www.teepasnow.com, where you'll find other resources as well. See you there.